What's going on? My name is Nick and this is Gaming Instincts. In today's video I want to talk about Dragon Ball games, namely the fighting games. With Dragon Ball FighterZ out, I think it's time to take a look at the evolution of Dragon Ball fighting games and see how the progression leads all the way into a game like Dragon Ball FighterZ. Most of my research and findings comes from the website, the Dragon Ball Wiki, a wiki page for fans, by fans. Now these games will be segmented into different eras. Each era refers to the time and developers that worked on the titles. There are at least 4 eras that I want to go over pertaining to 4 developers of these games. There are a few developers that I'll mention that created certain games in between, but the important eras to cover here are Tose, Dimps, Spike, and what I refer to as the Dimps Revival. Each era contains crucial and important games that evolved the Dragon Ball fighting games into what they are today. So let's get started. Starting off with the Tose era, the first game on the list is Dragon Ball Z Gekito Tenkaichi Budokai, which was released on the Famicom in 1992 in Japan. Gekito Tenkaichi Budokai, or we can just abbreviate it as GTB because I think we get it, it's a long title, but it was published under Bandai, currently known as Bandai Namco Entertainment, and developed by Tose Software. Tose's involvement on the Dragon Ball titles play a vital role in the evolution of fighting games, as they were key players in leaving a legacy on not just Dragon Ball fighting games, but a lot of other Dragon Ball related games of the late 1980s and mid 1990s. With that in mind, what's so special about GTB? Well, it's a fighting game card reader. Back in the day, in order to get kids to buy more than just the console itself, they had add-ons. With the original Nintendo Entertainment System, or the Famicom in Japan, you needed to buy a card reader, then buy trading cards used to unlock more characters to play the game. Just like any fighting game, there is a health bar to watch for depletion and a timer. Though there is no actual health bar, it's rather listed as health points. A key mechanic that is set in stone for most future fighting titles in this game is the option to fight on the ground or in the air. GTB has a pretty big roster of 28 characters. Among those are variations of characters, such as being able to play as base level Goku or Super Saiyan Goku. The focus of this game was the amount of characters that one could find and unlock through trading cards. The next title developed by Tose is Dragon Ball Z Super Butoden, another fighting game released in 1993 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or the Super Famicom. This game is what would be considered a truer fighter than the aforementioned Gekito Budokai Tenkaichi. Super Butoden, along with its 2 brethren Super Butoden 2 and Super Butoden 3, laid the groundwork for all future fighting titles to perfect and build off of. The Butoden series is considered mildly popular among fans for its gameplay. In terms of game mechanics, Butoden featured characters to have a ki bar used to fire ki blasts and devastating ki waves, or beams. Short and simple combos, the ability to fly in the air and fight. Fighting stages were large and allowed for more roaming. They were large enough to the point that the screen would split into 2 to keep characters in view, and there was even a small radar in the middle showing approximately where characters are from one another. Similarly, future titles like Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi would adopt this mechanic as well, but that is a video for another time. It won't be until Butoden 2 that characters receive their signature ki moves. The ki bar can be recharged during matches to keep the assault going. The ability to beam clash was added in this series of games, which is where both opponents shoot a ki wave at the same time and they collide together in a struggle of power. The roster in Butoden 1 featured 13 fighters, while Butoden 2 decreased the size to 10, but it did bring characters such as Broly and Bojack to the fight. And it also added a story mode to the game which offered alternate endings based on character feedback through wins or losses, a term that later titles would dub what-if scenarios. Tose was on a roll with the Butoden titles that they even developed other similar Dragon Ball Z fighting games for other consoles at the time, such as Dragon Ball Z Buuyu Retsuden, released for the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis in 1994. It was released for fans who weren't on Nintendo consoles and wanted to pick up and join in on the hype. The game does not really offer anything that different outside of just being on another console. But another title that was released on PlayStation in 1995 was called Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22. Also under Tose's development, it offered a wide range of characters going from the Frieza saga all the way to the Majin Buu saga. Ultimate Battle 22 introduced a few new mechanics that aimed to allow balance to the roster of 22 characters. ki consumption rate, exhaustion, and an offensive hyper move or super move specific to characters, like Goku using his Kaioken attack or Tien Shinhan using his duplication technique to beat up on opponents. In previous titles, the ki meter was always able to be replenished without much consequence, so to mediate this, certain attacks and ki beams used various amounts of ki. With ki beams such as Vegeta's Final Flash, it would take a while to replenish before being able to use again. Ki exhaustion was also added to lessen the abuse further. When a player pushes a character beyond their depleted ki limit, the character will physically become exhausted and as a result be more vulnerable to attack. Players can also create energy shields to defend against attacks for a brief moment. Visually, Ultimate Battle 22's animations had characters look exactly as they do in the anime, but pitted them in 3D environments. It was also taking a little bit of advantage of the PlayStation's 32-bit graphics. 1995 also gave us Dragon Ball Z Shin Butoden, which was on the Sega Saturn. Visually and gameplay-wise, it is equivalent to Ultimate Battle 22. Characters replicating their anime counterparts, but in an interesting decision, the backgrounds are all in 2D rather than 3D. With a roster of 27 characters total, Shin Butoden adds 2 game modes. Group Battle, which allows you to create a team using your favorite fighters and fight another team until the last character standing wins, and another mode simply called Mr. Satan mode. While not as engaging as fighting your foes, you take on the role of Hercule Satan as he tries to cheat his way into placing bets against fighters. Before the fight can take place, you must set up your items for use in the game and do what you can to force the characters you didn't bet on to lose. The 1996 release of Dragon Ball Z Hyperdimension marked the last Dragon Ball Z fighting game released on the Super Nintendo, and Tose delivered one feat of a fighter. Hyperdimension had enhanced 2D sprite work, more detailed than previous games, and took steps to appeal to the more hardcore fighting game market. While a huge step back in terms of the roster featuring only 8 characters, I suppose the argument here can be made that characters that mattered were all put in the game. Continuing the trend of story mode battles, this game changes things up by having you play a focused story on one character only to pick up with another right after that story ends. The inclusion of a practice mode is probably the biggest catch of all for this title, allowing players to sit and understand the game mechanics. The usual mechanics from other Dragon Ball fighting games are all relatively intact here, but a few added perks here to make Hyperdimension different are the inclusion of desperation moves, which is when a character's health lowers to a certain point and allows access to moves that cause significantly high damage. Ki charging affects both ki and health now. Both can be replenished to keep fights lasting longer. And finally, the addition of multi-tiered stages. Well-placed hits to opponents can cause certain areas of the stage or corners to break. Wrapping up the Tose area with the last title, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout. Released in 1997, the first Tose era fighting game to be fully rendered in 3D. It is also the last Dragon Ball fighting game to be released on the PlayStation. The gameplay and mechanics are all still similar to the Super Butoden titles. Characters can attack, shoot ki blasts and ki waves, they can fly or fight on the ground, and just like Ultimate Battle 22, you can become exhausted after ki depletion and can refill the ki gauge after recovery. Final Bout features 17 playable characters, ranging from Cell Saga, Majin Buu, and the newest edition, GT. While GT doesn't have many characters, it does come with Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Trunks, and Pan, even Baby Uzoro Vegeta. But he's not playable, just the boss. This is the last game under Tose's development before they pass the reins off to another developer for the next stage of Dragon Ball fighting titles. In the next video, I will go over the Dimps era of titles and how their impact also greatly affected and further progressed the titles to come. I'm Nick from GamingInstinctsTV and we'll be leaving you here, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and hit the notification bell to stay up to date and know when a new video is ready for your viewing pleasure. Also, check out our website at www.gaminginstincts.com for all the latest news, featured articles, reviews, and more.